Welcome back to another Fair Income episode, guys. Today we have a very special podcast for you. Just in line with what's happening in Turkey, we got somebody who's actually an expert on the situation that's going on currently with the Turkish economy and the election. Brother AlmirColan, he just filmed a documentary called Turkey's Economy, The Untold Story. You're going to give that a sus, inshallah. We're going to put it in the description below. But just to give you a little bit more depth about what's going on in the podcast, we did speak about the documentary. Brother Almir's travels to Turkey over the past 20 years, speaking about what he has in regards to comparisons between what happened back in 1998 with the economy then, or the situation of Turkey then, and then what's going on currently now. We also delved into whether or not Australia is going to be in a recession soon, whether we're moving towards cashless society, and also all these debunking all these other conspiracy theories regarding economy and what's currently going on with the interest rates. So don't forget to like, comment and subscribe on this episode, and give and show some love to Brother Almir in the comments below. And inshallah, enjoy the episode.
They are expanding NATO. Now, Turkey is in NATO, but they don't want that. NATO is not humanitarian organization. They are not coming there to give cookies, Just like we wouldn't like Russia, or let's say China in our case. When China wanted to build a base in Solomon Island around us, we didn't like it. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't like a couple of thousand nuclear and other warheads being around Australia, right? You wouldn't like it. It wouldn't. Same like America wouldn't like Russia parking a couple of those in Mexico.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother AlmirColan.
Alaikum salam.
I used your full government name, my apologies. But welcome back to
license
the podcast.
Number. Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
ABN, we're checking at the bottom as well. We're also joined by a very special guest. I don't think they can see it on camera, but... No, up to you. Up to you. You happy with it? Yeah, beautiful. Done. We actually we are joined by a very special guest, a big part of what we're going to speak about later in the success of the documentary, Allahumma barik. Welcome. Wahala, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Adam, beautiful. AlmirColan as well. So what we're going to do is, inshallah, we're going to have a quick conversation about the documentary, the current situation of Turkey's politics, and just a little bit about what's going on currently within the economic climate of Australia, just the whole inflation and what's going on currently. I know that you're seeing that. You're probably familiar with the RBA going up, and they had like a little bit of a structured problem or issue, and they're going back and forth. Now, these are things that I'm interested in now that I'm in the field. So I'm sorry for whoever's not, but it is what it is. But we'll start it off with what the major topic of it is, of this podcast will be, which is the whole thing surrounding your Turkish trip and the documentary filming and so on. So one thing that I did want to ask you was, so you've been back in Melbourne for a month now?
Yeah.
And you stayed in Turkey for about 6 months.
Yeah, on and off, going in and out. For the last 9 months, I've been traveling in and out 4 or 5 times, staying between 4 to 6. Last time was 8 weeks. So altogether was quite a long trip, actually.
Yeah. So you would kind of get a feeling of what it was like within some significant events in Turkey's history. So obviously they've got the election that's just passed, and now they're going to do the recount. For people who are watching, I'm hoping this is going to go on Monday, yeah?
Inshallah, yeah.
Next Sunday. We're watching whole night.
Inshallah.
Staying up.
And you're going to do the subtitles for the day. But you went through, and you were also present when the earthquakes happened. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give patience, and inshallah grant them all Jannatul Firdaus for their struggles. But you were also there for that, and you were also there to experience what was or felt like a major shift in the political landscape following that event, because we do know that a lot of the people who were against Erdogan for politically kind of used that as a springboard into delving a little bit further into their distaste for him or for his political sphere, I guess. So just give us if you can, like a sum up of how an outsider from Melbourne, from Bosnia, how you felt when you were there. Was it a change?
It was really great, alhamdulillah. Turkey, I love being there. This time I spent in the suburbs, area called Kartaltepe in Bayrampaşa municipality. So I hired the apartment. A lot of Bosnian people live there. So it just felt great. Reminds me of Bosnia. I get to know local people, drink a lot of tea, shopkeepers, neighbors, and, just average people every day. You see, you talk, how's everything going? So I was able to sort of, over the period of time, get a sense of how things are progressing. And then I would travel key cities, talk to, taxi driver, young people, academics, business people, business owner. I wanted to try to get a picture, really, what is going on with Turkey economically, and what is really the story that we might not hear in the mainstream media. Because the media has a specific way of dealing with this country, and even in the lead up, and that was the key here. I wanted to cover this in a lead up to these elections. So economy is the number one topic there. Yeah. And I felt that maybe media is not covering all the aspects that I was reading about. I couldn't see the data, fair portrayal. So I thought, maybe there is a story to be told there.
Was this, because the listeners probably know you come from Islamic finance background, was this from a place of business, like you thought, hey, this would be a good project to do, to have a documentary about, the Turkish economy, or was this coming from like a place in your heart, like you have an affinity towards Turkey and you wanted to give it the best light possible to the wider audience? Probably
a bit of both. Okay. I have over the years developed a model for Islamic economy that needed a piece from the government perspective, when you put the policies and so on. And I wanted to observe that in a country where that makes more sense. And Turkey being country very strong, growing, emerging, taking very much a leadership position economically, and under the President Erdogan specifically, I felt that between the business transactions that I was analyzing, personal, let's say, financial issues, I needed a piece where the government and society at larger level comes in play. Yeah. And so Turkey I visited first time when I got married in 1998. That was a very troubling time in the country. I talk about it in the documentary. When I went there, I remember Friday after Juma, there was major demonstrations, and I had no idea what's happening. And it turns out that people were protesting and demonstrating because the girls couldn't wear hijab, and the boys couldn't have a beard in the university. So in 90s, you had major social problems. The government that came in power, it was Islamic sort of, like similar to Erdogan, his teacher, Erbakan, got in power 95. By 97, they were removed from government, banned from politics. Even President Erdogan, who was a mayor, he was in prison for reciting the poem. And that was a catastrophic time for Turkey. Even you have members of the parliament. A lady was elected as a member of the parliament. Hijab, once she showed up, that was considered as such a provocation that her citizenship was stripped for that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she had a dual U.S. Turkish citizenship, and so it was such a massive injustice, and so it was all leading up to 2001 economic crisis, major crisis happened, and then that crisis led to AK Party President Erdogan actually coming power 2002. So from those days, I've been following what's happening. I was fascinated, actually. And in fact, what Australia is interesting for this, because once the President Erdogan was in prison, when he got out from the prison, he came to Melbourne, Australia, 3 months after that. In Meadow Heights, he stayed 3 weeks.
You can't get more. That's mini
You
Turkey.
can't.
I love it.
So I actually got the footages of him there, you know, when he visited, and we showed it in the documentary. And I talked to the person that he stayed for the 3 months, you know. And I remember when I was I interviewed that brother Kazim 3-4 times before, you know, as a preparation for documentary, you know, get a sense of the Erdogan, what's he like, you know, before I interview brother Kazim at the end. And he said to me, you know, like, you know the Erdogan in the news and, you know, formally, but I know the guy who, when he wakes up, opens the fridge in my own house and asks, where is the orange juice here? You know? So he shared brilliant stories, you know, when they were traveling to Sydney, and we show it in the documentary. So that kind of gave me the picture. But you know, Turkey in those 20 years achieved major transformation, not just social but economically. And even my own daughter, just a few years ago, went there to study the language and so on, and with hijab, and you know, she would share the room with the girl from, I think, France, Bosnia, somewhere else, Somalia, or something like that. Like from all around the world, you go to this university. It's a different sort of economically and socially. The country is a different country. And so for me, that is what attracted me to that country. I had that sort of interest to see what's happening.
And you have this, you said like a blueprint for what an Islamic country's economy should be running, and you think Turkey is pretty much the ground to practice on or analyze and see if they can run it. And why is that Turkey? Because we, for example, can think of so many other Muslim countries, at least with money already, and with complete power, you know, under one ruler or something like that. Why isn't other maybe countries in the Middle East or in Southeast Asia better countries to analyze?
Because they don't produce anything. They are not independent. Their economy is based on one or two export that they do. Maybe it's a raw material or oil or something. Where Turkey, if you look at Turkey, they are independent, and they are producing almost everything they need for their own needs. So, for example, if you look at the food, they are exporting something like 1,800 different food items to almost 200 countries.
Damn.
Right? Like defense independent, they're 80% defense independent. You know, they banned them from buying the American Predator drones. They made their own. They banned them F-35s. They are now on the way to make their own. You know, laser-guided missiles. You know,
They even
heavy, light
to
weaponry.
Ukraine, Remember you were telling me about that?
The Bayraktar drones, they were decisive in modern warfare for winning Azerbaijan war. In Ukraine soldiers sang a song about it. You know, when you have the heavy artillery that was built for Cold War, you know, it's easy picking from the sky with a drone. So you send the tanks from Russia to Ukraine that have long supply lines. That tank needs fuel, needs ammunition, needs food for the... So you send a couple of drones, pop, 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 pop. That's it. That grinds to the whole machinery, military machine, you know. Libya, Syria, a lot of the times you see reconnaissance missions, the strikes, they use these. So anything you look, they are able to produce things. They are able to be very competitive. They're going very much high tech. They're even sending the satellites into the space through the SpaceX program.
One thing, after spending 6 months, more than 6 months, traveling around Turkey, meeting all these people that understand the politics, the goals of Turkey, the aspirations, and understanding that they're like now they're high tech, they're self-sustainable. Is it a thing where, because we aren't in the loop, you know, I don't speak Turkish, you know, I can't really watch Turkish news. Is it something where Turkey want to become a superpower again? because obviously they had a rich history. Like I was in Turkey in January, I spent a couple of weeks there, and most conversations you have with people that talk about their history, they're so proud of it because it's an honor. It's 500 years, you know, that was the Muslim empire. Is this a thing where they're trying to like not bring back like that, but are they trying to become a superpower country again? Like, is that an aspiration for them?
Their culture is such where they respect leadership. They respect leader. They themselves are very, you know, what they like soldier type of culture. You know, that's something that is seen very highly respected. What they don't want to be is a junior partner to these other countries, right? They're not necessarily like, let us be a leader of the whole world and you gather around us. But, you know, they have their own self-interests. And they don't want to play according how other people telling them what to do. Because until very recently, Turkey was very much following the dictate from the West. And you are the great president if you are very passive, very subservient, you follow what we tell you. Like the West would now love the most that, you know, Turkey completely does, let's say in Ukraine, whatever we tell you, you do there. But that's a neighborhood of Turkey. You know, they have to live with Ukraine, with Russians, and there has to be very strategic way of handling that delicate situation. It's easy to just, you know, do what somebody who doesn't live that in the region wants, right? But for them, it's very delicate. And so when they realize that President Erdogan is looking for his own interests, for the way he's working on what's the best for his country, but also for that region. This is when he was labeled dictator, you know, non-democratic, dangerous, authoritarian, and so on. But Turkey wants to be equal partner in shaping that region, being treated fairly, treat others fairly. And I think a lot of countries respect it. They respond well. Turkey is not looking to invade, does not invade. It's different paradigm as opposed to what we see from West. Let's say US comes with a very heavy-handed approach, corrupting approach. It will complain about elections in Turkey, the newspapers. That had 88% participation in these elections, but they will not complain where the country there is somebody who goes election get 99.7% votes, you know? They'll say, oh, this is legitimate. This is free will of people, 99%. You know? And these ones, you know, something.
100%.
So between this kind of superpowers that exist today, I think almost like Turkey is emerging as a voice of those countries that have no voice. That's why Erdogan is consistently saying the United Nations message is world is bigger than 5. You have 5 Security Council nations, UN, that determine the whole situation whenever UN meets, that can veto everything. Something happens in Palestine. You can't pass because US will veto all the time, one country. So you have so many Muslim countries, billions of people in hundreds of these countries, and these countries veto. So he's saying the world is bigger than 5 of these countries that supposedly represent. So when you see him talking with other countries, you see that more and more he is becoming voice for the countries that are seeking this justice, and I think they see in Turkey as some kind of a voice of that might represent their interests better than current, let's say, system.
100%. And something that I saw in the documentary that kind of got me shaking or scratching my head a little bit is because from an outsider looking in, I'm looking at what Erdogan is doing, and I'm thinking, Allahumma barik, he's creating an independent infrastructure. He's creating a place that's self-sufficient. He's trying to do all these things to put Turkey obviously on the map again, to create a hub for their own people and for exports and for everyone else around them. And obviously, like they said, it's at the center of the world. So it's a lot easier for them to actually work their exports, unlike other countries such as China or so on. That'll cost a lot more to transport and so forth. But just seeing the reaction from the younger generation kind of baffled me a little bit. And I noticed that, especially in Istanbul and Ankara, when they were talking about the voting recently, they've gone against Erdogan. And what didn't make sense to me is the fact that you've got all these people who are entrepreneurial or people who are working, and their unemployment rates have dropped, and the GDP is the third best in the world, as was shown on the documentary as well. How do we come to this place where you've got such mixed emotions about something that's quite clearly a positive thing?
So, just to a little bit backtrack, in last few years, there were a sequence of events that led to, let's say, inflation, where the prices go up, and currency devaluation. And this is basically a result of what's happening in Ukraine, pandemic, plus, whenever Trump tweets he's going to put the tariffs on the Turkish steel, or one of these news comes out that attack, people react by dumping lira, and there is a panic that sets in, right? And so with the normal economic events plus the panic, this starts spiraling sometimes. And the government, by the way, entered into the new way where they decided not to prop up artificially currency through high interest rates from before, because it was very counterproductive. In the past, they would prop it up, and what used to happen is that that would make a currency too strong, which would lead to more imports being cheaper. And so basically you are subsidizing goods from overseas. So the more goods were coming, more dollarization was happening, and that was killing the local manufacturing jobs and industry. So basically, what started happening is with all of these global events, everywhere there is a problem with the inflation. And here you were talking about last 12 months, for example, 11 of them we had I think raise of the interest rates. So in Turkey, young people and anyone on fixed income, when there is inflation, they would feel the pain. So pensioners, young people, people in the public areas and so on. And by the time government reacts to increase the minimum wage and so on, there is a bit of a space where it's not easy, right? So you have to kind of acknowledge and understand that it's not the perfect all the time for everybody. But there is this relentless negative media where it is everything that is positive, it's being minimized. Everything negative, maximized. And a lot of young people who've been living through this period for the last 20 years, they have experienced only growth, economic growth. This is the first time they see, there is a little bit of economic crisis happening. Yeah. And so this is a big shock for them. And this year specifically, there are 6 million young people who are voting for the first time. So when I talk to them, it's interesting that they think everywhere else is better or good, no problems. Only Turkey is experiencing a problem. Yeah. And when I ask them, like, where do you read the news? And it's always social media. I asked one of them, I didn't want to put it in the documentary, but one of them told me that he's been living in US for 1 year, and he saw that in US, to get a car and be financially free, you need to basically work 5 hours a week, right? As a student. And I was like, which country is that? Which country you work 5 hours as a no qualification young man, right? You're not a doctor or engineer, it's just basic job, maybe grocery or something, or McDonald's. And for 5 hours, you are able to afford lifestyles. Like, this is a TikTok idea, where everybody live in the mansion. This is how some people, they think in Australia, America, we all have a big mansions, big swimming pool. We're just tweeting or TikToking, whatever.
Drop shipping.
And we are there, and there is a lifestyle, So a lot of people is under that impression that things are like that. And I try to understand it. You know, that's being young. You want things, but as you mentioned, when you go through the numbers, when you go through everything, what is said is that country is doing so well. It's so underappreciated what's happening.
Yeah.
Everything is looked through the very few numbers. And young people who I spoke with, some of them even say, I don't know if I have a future here. Like, and this is for me the most sad, that go to some other countries in the region, see what's happening there. You know?
Even you look at Turkey on a map, and you look at every single country it shares a border with, and then the country next to it, and you think Turkey's doing so well compared to all of them.
Tell them go Lebanon, bro. Lebanon is struggling.
It's literally like south, north, east, west. You look at it, and you even look at where you're from, you know, like Eastern Europe, which isn't too far off. And a lot of the countries, they're not thriving to the extent that it's like, you know, gold and...
We compare it to the region. MENA region, OECD countries, Euro region, outperformed in last 20 years, all of these regions, economically, in growth, in everything. So that's where the problem is, that there is a story of economic success and transformation and how they're preparing themselves. That should be celebrated. In fact, in one of these, one of the particular story that we follow is one of the academics who is Turkish, but he teaches at university. He goes and he tells us, oh, you know, we don't even produce the food, wheat anymore. We have to import from Russia, and you know. And what was interesting, when you analyze those claims, you actually completely see different side of the story. So I don't want to spoil it, but we go through those claims, we take it apart, you know, what people are saying, what they don't say, and we try to debunk those points.
I remember that. That was one part that I was like, you know what? I actually kind of agree with this guy. What's he saying? And then you unpack the actual situation, and I was like, oh, come on, like,
because you can see the piece of information, and it is true. That is true information piece,
exactly.
But he got it completely wrong. You know, you're looking at something and you're thinking, oh, this is what it means. This is I'm seeing the picture. But when you actually understand why that is and what's the bigger piece, you see actually that's not what you thought it was.
Just on this topic of elections, because us in Australia, when we don't know what's going on, we think Erdogan, he's preaching Islam, and the opposition is preaching secularism and nationalism, and it's away from religion. Because of what we've seen the last 100 years with Ataturk, we think Turkey is divided 50-50, practicing and non-practicing. Is that really what it is? Is it religion the main thing? Like, or is it there's so many other things to it that we just don't know about?
It's a kind of interesting thing. In the West, we have one clear-cut black and white perception, you know, of everything. Ataturk, we know immediately where we stand and what we class, you know. But when you go there and you speak to the people, you get those details which are really, really different, like how they see the situation. I'll give you an example, Bosnian people there. As I was in the area, and I asked, who you going to vote for? So this is a guy who is practicing Muslim and everything, and he's going to say, oh, I'm going to vote for this CHP, which is Ataturk party, secular. And I'm thinking like, okay, so you... And another taxi driver said, Inshallah CHP. Like, and I'm like, how does that make sense? Inshallah, I'm going to vote for these people. Like, you are Muslim, you know? So I started investigating, you know, this is not in documentary, but I started investigating people who know. And I said, why are immigrants and Bosnians and these people who are, you know, from all these, voting for these people? So what it turns out is that when, let's say, Bosniak people came 80 years ago, after the Ottoman Empire started collapsing on Balkan, and then 5-6 millions who live now from Bosniak, you know, when they moved to that region to escape Austro-Hungarian Empire taking over Balkan. When they came, they were welcomed by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, that party, that regime, right?
Okay.
And what they were teaching their children is that you have to be grateful, and always they would teach that you are grateful and show that they accepted us by voting for that.
Yeah.
So until today, they stick with that.
Wow.
Subhanallah.
So they didn't unlearn.
Yeah. So I was like, but don't you know, just as a Bosniak people, policy of Erdogan for Balkan is he's stabilizing force. He's very involved there. He goes visit Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, where this other guy doesn't want to get involved in foreign policies, you know. And so, and also the way that they lead people in Turkey, you know. One thing, again, we look at Erdogan, for example, lot of lenses, like international, what he does in the region. You know, you have voters who just look in my own local municipality, who is better for me. I'm doing business. Maybe I want to have a permission to build a building.
Exactly.
This party will give me better deal.
Exactly.
Sure.
This party didn't want to give me 20-story building. They only approved 10.
Well,
I don't care about anything. I'm just gonna, get the other guy.
that reminds me, because in Sydney for the longest time, even Western Sydney is all about Muslims, Arabs and the like, and it didn't make sense. For the longest time, they were all liberals. They were always like voting for the liberal party. And I was wondering why. For the longest time, I was like, "Are you guys serious? They're racist. They don't like us."
Yeah.
And then they go, "Oh no, it's because we get these other benefits."
Yeah.
So they paid for their votes basically. And just recently, I think it was this year, they finally became a Labour elected government.
Yeah, I mean,
So
like
was
there is a lot of these dynamics. One interesting thing is when it comes to the general understanding. Of course, you can take theological X-ray and apply to those secular movements and so on, right? Nationalist, secular, and you can analyze it like that. But a lot of people there, the way they think about it, those sultans before, as the Khilafah or empire was crumbling, they became increasingly weak and orientated toward the West. Like some of the people that you maybe don't like today, as they cling on the West, right? And they were giving away Turkey as a country in the pieces, where it was almost Turkey was about to give part with most of the parts, except little central piece, and maybe Istanbul is to be administered as a sort of managed between different countries, disappearing. That's how weak some of these people that we think, there was a Khalifa at that time, but it was a terrible person. He was didn't do, very ineffective, and basically country was collapsing and being taken in pieces. So in their psychology, this soldier rose up, Kemal Atatürk, and Turks love leaders. They just, if you can do something, if you masculine, powerful, achieving things, that's it, right? That's how it is psychologically. So when he stood against, and why he was called Atatürk, because he went against giving away country, right? And so he was able to unify and preserve borders. And yes, he said, forget these other pieces. Let's concentrate on where we are as a Turks.
Yep.
Okay, and let's save that. And so Istanbul areas and so on. And so a lot of people, they respect him from that. They like one person said, he says, I wish at least he went few times to the mosque and said few times, something, so we can, but unfortunately, that version of secularism was, and until today, is deeply, deeply rooted. And they are so easy to discriminate. I was talking with, I was in this film company, and this young lady was telling me she studies film and so on, and she was telling me how she, at her university, she had a friend, both Muslim, both pray, one wear hijab, one doesn't. And the one without hijab was telling another one with hijab, and she was saying, like, you know what, I think those, like with hijabi girls, they shouldn't be allowed really in spaces where the government offices, buildings. And she was saying that to her friend who wears hijab as if it was nothing. And she was like, she sees me in hijab. We are friends. She's saying this to me like she's talking about some nice casual topic. Oh, it's a nice day. Should we go out, in and out? Like, and this is how deeply this secularism was embedded, that they dehumanize these people. And because they also have had power, when they now see Muslims being more free, being more in business, being more economically stable, and they see this rebalancing of a country, some people, for some people that drives them crazy, you know. But but this is why I'm saying it's when we look from outside, from there are a lot of these aspects culturally, how people analyze and view and look, you know, even now for in the election, you have 6 parties, some of them Islamic parties that joined them, some of them left, some of them right, some of them nationalists and so on, when going against Erdogan. Some of the former people who used to work with him go with this party. So it's an interesting sort of dynamic.
And I've noticed that one of the major topics that's been spoken about is the Syrian refugees and letting in and kicking out refugees and obviously we've seen a bunch of videos surface on social media of a nationalist attacking somebody who's dressed Islamically within the streets, or that sister, I don't know if you've seen it, the sister that's wearing the hijab. She's Turkish, but she speaks Arabic and she's reporting for an Arabic news channel, I think. And she walked up to him and she asked him like, okay, why are you like this? He's like, why are you dressed like an Arab? What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I think he pushed her away or something like that, and he assaulted her. But so you kind of see like a distaste for a certain nationality or a certain type of lifestyle. Is that very common in
I think some context around it. Turkey accepted about 4 million refugees from Syria. Obviously neighboring country, and they treated them as guests. So in terms of providing healthcare, basic insurance, you know, all of the things that you would need, and that how it's like a decade going on, right? So it's normal that if you have a situation where you suddenly put 4 million people into the country, anytime one of those people they might be involved in something, or they might do something that it might stick out, and suddenly it becomes like
you're trying to take over.
It's easy blame.
It's so visible that this person is Syrian and so on. Or if they go to, for example, outside of these certain areas, and then they start suddenly the streets change kind of signs and language and people, and people start like what is going on. And so we as Muslims, we have a different take on these things. We look at these things a little bit differently. But you have some people who see that as a threat, as a changing character of the country. But also it's a human interaction. Whenever you have that friction between people, always you will have some friction that boils over. And you see that. So there is like in every other country, if you increase suddenly group of people, whatever, you know, like there would be these sorts of things happening. So it is very, of course, very unfortunate. This last election, this has been used by some. They try to politicize this because obviously this comes as a huge bill for the government. Now the war is stopping. They're saying why we are not returning them. What should we be doing? So Erdogan was asking a debate just few days ago by young people. What we're going to do. And he clearly said, these are our brothers. It would be un-Islamic. It is against our norms. We can't just kick out people, treat them like this. This is no. With the other guy, clearly, after especially we see that results are not going his way, to appeal to national base, he says, we need to. And he said, it's 10 million people. like Donald Trump, they're taking over the country.
Build the wall.
And what's interesting is that all of the left media, they are treating him as their candidate. He's speaking more kind of in a more racist undertones and overtones than Donald Trump. Yet leftist media is treating as he's one of them.
Yeah.
And so it's a very interesting dynamic. But I think there is an element of people to whom that will appeal. But overall, I think it's not going to work. I think people are very generous. They're accommodating. And those other things, we will continue to see them. You can't remove that. It's a large population and quick mix. The
economy will suffer.
Economy will suffer. People suffer. People always find in uncertain times somebody to blame. Somebody, whenever something like that happens, you will have some friction. So that's something that does happen from time to time.
Sure. It's just unfulfilled promises, as usual politicians do.
They try to politicize anything and everything. We'll solve this problem. So whatever happens, they try to find somebody to blame.
By the way, guys, there's 80% of you guys who watch our videos are actually not subscribed. So stop the video right here. My voice cut out. Stop the video right here. Subscribe. I'll give him a second. Now we can resume the video. Enjoy.
What's some of Erdogan's statements that if he comes into power again, this is what he would do? Like, is there big things that it's like, okay, this is the reason we want to go behind him?
His whole approach, his whole strategy towards independence, building country up, is influencing the change in the mindset of the people. For a long time, Turkey had a stigma attached that started maybe more than 100 years ago, that they are the sick men of Europe. This is the branding that they attached to them. And in 1997, there was an interesting cartoon of then Necmettin Erbakan saying that we want to transform the country, build this infrastructure. And the Hurriyet newspaper in 1997 published a cartoon mocking him for even making this idea, like how. How can you even dream of these things? Biggest airport in the Europe, in the world, biggest railway line, speed train, all of that in 90s. You are plus you are imam, you are hoja, you are effendi. How can you, with that mindset, build these technology things? What's wrong with you? This is for Italians, Germans. These are the people who build these things, Yep. So we can't build these things. What's wrong with you? So there was a bit of that. And so when Erdogan came to power, he slowly built that sort of active presidency, and he changed the country, and everything he said, he delivered. So people got their confidence. So now when he's saying, we're gonna build hundreds of thousands of new houses, whatever he promised, people don't doubt it any longer.
So those statements are obviously to make Turkey, because obviously the last couple of years have been tough. It's mainly fixing these issues for the Turkish citizens. This is what his aspirations are. Because I don't know, if he's saying, our goal is to take Palestine back, or our goal is to, help this country or help that country, be a support mechanism. Because I know they've given a lot of aid to a lot of, other Muslim countries whenever they are in need. So I've always seen him be helpful outside of the Turkish borders. But obviously, to win an election, you need to focus of the internal, the people that are actually voting and stuff like that.
I mean, all of these are the big questions. The Palestine issues that he's been very vocal, very supportive. But he has a country in a very complex world. So sometimes you try to help somebody, but there is only how much you can do.
True.
Like in Bosnia, sometimes Bosnian people get angry why so many Turkish people work with Serbia, for example. There are more factories, Turkish factories in Serbia and in Bosnia. And people say, oh, why? Well, this citizen go there because Serbs open the door for them, tax concessions, everything. So they open factories there.
Money talks.
You know, so business people go there, for instance. You work in that region. Of course, you are statesman. You're a statesman, and you have to do things that are in the best interest of your own country. You don't have a luxury of being principled. Like, I will never speak with such and such person or that person.
Yeah.
You try how much diplomacy can take you. After that, you know, look at, for example, Erdogan and Russia. In Ukraine, they are on opposite sides. Turkish drones are massacring their troops. In Syria, opposite sides. But on other sides, Putin is investing in nuclear power. Putin is signing the deal to export the grains. Putin is, you know, sitting with Erdogan and meeting, and, you know. So it's very delicate. It's not a clear cut, I'm against you or for you. At some areas, we are on the knife edge. On other areas, we are.
Yeah.
So if you ask now Putin who he wants, Erdogan 100%. Because he's balanced. He's balancing. He doesn't want to, let's say Ukraine situation. He doesn't want to necessarily Turkey go all in Ukraine. Then you pushing him to do something which could escalate that conflict further, right? So it's a tricky situation. What do you do? Because it's on your own border, and so it's a region is like that. If you don't make a peace deal with, for example, Egypt might gonna go with Greece, make a block against what you're trying to do with Libya and exploring the Mediterranean for gas and future security conflict. If you don't make a deal with Saudis, then Emirati and Saudis will make a block that will endanger you further with other issues. And so it's a very complex, so you might have ideologically with a country or a region or a president or a person conflict on one side and something happened, but then to avoid major conflict for your country, you have to backtrack and you know, play differently, calm down situation, you know. Let's you know, reset. Let's reduce tensions. Let's reduce number of conflict issues, because there's only so much you can do. There was a great quote in Sun Tzu, Art of War. He said, one of the principles of war, you know, he was a very famous general who won so many battles and so on. So he said, the army that wins every war will eventually lose. If you go to every conflict, if you go and it escalate into the war, and even if you win, you will deplete yourself of resources, and that will make you lose at the end. So what you need to do is spare yourself conflicts, tensions as a country, because you have limited resources, because there are very powerful forces that see Turkey as a door to that region, and they want to control that door to Middle East and the whole that region. And so they are very interested to have somebody who will do their bidding.
Who's they?
So they here, for example, if we look at the Western world alliance like a NATO, and let's say a Western world, which is, let's say, US, Europe, these are the countries that have alliance. And now you see where the complication is. Turkey is also part of NATO, but ideologically Western world that now, for example, let's say backing Ukraine, let's say those countries that back Ukraine now, okay, so these are European countries in America. They are expanding NATO. Now Turkey is in NATO, but they don't want that. NATO is not humanitarian organization. They are not coming there to give cookies, you know, just like we wouldn't like Russia or let's say China in our case. When China wanted to build a base in Solomon Island around us, we didn't like it. You wouldn't like a couple of thousand nuclear and other warheads being around Australia, right? You wouldn't like it. It wouldn't. Same like America wouldn't like Russia parking a couple of those in Mexico. So I was once watching the caricature, and I think I told you, and they show Russia on the world map, and then all of the American bases
Yeah.
from Europe,
I've seen
Middle
pictures of
East,
that, yeah.
Japan, Australia.
Everywhere around.
So everywhere in the seas, nuclear carriers, and it's like there is Russia, and around all these. And so one of the Americans was studying the map, and he said, "Look, these Russians, they put their country next to our bases." You know,
Americans.
so that's the world. Cold War, after the collapse of Soviet Union and Berlin Wall and so on, needed to stop military expansion. What's the point of NATO? Like, okay, this country is done. That threat, forget it, it's finished. Yep. Stop where you are. Don't now continue going and provoking, this country. And so this is where this complexity is in the world, that you can't just be for this or for that, because America and that world tried. That's common belief in Turkey, and I think it's correct that they would have supported the coup if it succeeded in 2016. Yep. Biden, before he was elected, he had an editorial meeting with the New York Times where he said, practically, we should support opposition against Erdogan. A few weeks ago, American top general met with the Kurdish PKK, which is classified as terrorist organization, separatist movement. And this is blatantly their meeting with these organizations. Right? So there are forces that want to see different regime in Turkey, more according to... and I think Erdogan wants independent policy making, what's best for the country. So sometimes that means that you have to go a little bit away from this, a little bit from this, and craft. Sometimes on some issues you are on opposite side of the table. Sometimes you are on the same side of the table. Yeah. And could be that you are dealing with the same party there. And so this is what Erdogan is doing in a complex world of politics. He is like a soccer player, a soccer team, but you have only few players in your team against this team of stars, Messi, Ronaldo, and you are like one or two players in your team.
Yeah. I think that's for anyone that does research, even just on history, for any part of history. There's always, multiple sides to the story. Sometimes you think of like the just ruler, or this sultan, or this khalifa, or this ruler, and then sometimes when you actually maybe read the autobiography, you'll start to see other things that made them human. It's like there's not someone besides like maybe the Prophet Muhammad, not maybe, beside the Prophet Muhammad that we aren't 100% with. There's 99, it's like they made a mistake here, they made a mistake here. That's just a part of history and life.
We're humans. Yeah. Obviously, all of us make mistakes. Yeah. But I did want to delve into, just on what you were touching on in regards to the Western media and the way they're portraying Erdogan and how there might be an ulterior motive in that regard. Now, a lot of people that I've spoken to, and I've done a fair bit of research on the whole topic of why anyone would want Erdogan out, or what Erdogan means to the Western civilization, NATO and so on and so forth. And one thing that I've noticed is when you look at the neighboring countries such as Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and I'm probably going to give you old Arab man rhetoric here, but a lot of them are makhrubin. They're all gone. They're basically depleted of their resources. They've been either war-torn, like you look at Afghanistan, you look at Iraq, you look at Syria. They're basically what we call countries that are done, like they're finished. And Lebanon is basically following suit. And when you look at them, now they're basically at the mercy of, or were at the mercy of, the Western civilization and what they wanted or what they didn't want. And correct me if I'm wrong here, when you see someone else within that realm who's Islamically based and pushing for, independence infrastructurally, and you're kind of like, you're starting to see that he's exacting plans and is creating independence within the country that won't require, like you were saying, the GDP is the third biggest in the world. They don't require anybody else they're exporting of goods, services, everything. They've got it in their own country, and they're creating this independence where they're not relying on US or Russia or France or whoever it is, Italy, Germany, like you were saying, for engineering and so on. You can see why they would want, the Western societies would be like, you know what? We need you to know your place too, like the rest of them. Yeah? Is there anything, do you think there's any truth to it as to why they would be doing this smear campaign in regards to Erdogan? Is basically like a kind of, you know, keep you there like the rest of yours kind of thing?
I was talking with someone last night, Egyptian brother. He lives in Istanbul, and he told me saying in Egyptian, maybe it's common in other countries. He said, if you want to teach a donkey a lesson, and let's say he's a free donkey, you take the one who is inside the stable and you start beating him so that he gets very loud from beating, so that will teach the other one lesson. So I think that's the strategy, you know. Show them how it looks like if you are going against us. And then what happened with Gaddafi, what happened with Saddam Hussein, and all of these people who started revolting, you know. You'll be hanged, you'll be destroyed, your country into the pieces and so on. I think that countries are looking for their own interests. And United States and some other countries are very aggressive. I mean, if you look at the history of last 50 years, they went to Vietnam because they thought that, wrongly they assumed, that China's communism is expanding and they need capitalism to expand before the communism takes over. And they did it militarily in a similar way, Afghanistan, Iraq. You know, a lot of these wars that we are seeing, they are for economic, for strategic reasons. So that's not a secret. That's just they are pursuing their own interest, and they are ready and happy to bankroll anybody who will support them. So, I mean, you go to Pakistan, I mean, most of the army intelligence is bankrolled by US, same with Egypt and same. So these are not like some new information I'm telling you. This is how world operate. I mean, Australia is now spending $300 billion to get a couple of submarines, you know, few of them. These somebody needs to pay for these things. America got so many of these moving pieces around. So there is a reason why they are extending this power. It brings them economic benefits, and this is where that synergy between economy and military that it works. This region is very rich in resources, and it's very strategically positioned. So, if there was no oil, you think that there would be as much interest in this region if it wasn't so strategic. So, this now collides with another rise of, let's say, China, Russia, and other countries that are coming. As China is getting more confident, it's starting to match American in technology, in how much they're spending. They're reducing number of military, making more elite, more professional. They're building their own aircraft carriers, their own, you know, submarines and everything else. That's why we hear increased rhetoric now, or Taiwan, and you know. And you see, again, America, the same, they've done in Ukraine, you know, getting to Taiwan to rebel, to, you know, we'll do this and that. And so they're pulling us, Australia, that's why we're buying these submarines. You know, otherwise, why do we need these, like, I mean, it's, so when these things happened, country needs to think, what am I doing? How am I going to protect myself? If you have a strategy that extends beyond just serving somebody else's need, then you need to start thinking differently. And this is where Turkey is, I think, breaking the way of thinking. Yeah. It doesn't want to go with this country or that country. It wants to go its own way.
Yeah. One thing that you just made me realize is obviously the young guys having chats from no place of education. They talk about how obviously the US has been a superpower, we'll say from World War II, really. And, that's like most debt countries, they're borrowing money from the US. They, like you said, they're funding their military. The US, debt is in US dollars and stuff like that. And they're saying the US has been a superpower for so long that China's on the rise. Like the last 30 years, they've been doing really, really well. And they're looking like they're going to surpass the US. Is that something that is going to happen? What's your prediction on that? Does that mean the US is going to crumble, or the US come second, maybe third to Russia? What does that look from an economical
US
standpoint?
is a very powerful state. It will continue to be superpower for a foreseeable future. So the amount of money and technology and what they can do is enormous. No country can match that. But more importantly, that they run financial infrastructure. So the financial infrastructure of the world is backed by their dollar, meaning that when you send the dollars here and there, or when you transact, you buy oil, you send money here and there, your banking system, SWIFT, all of these ways that money flows around the world. At the back is a dollar that backs. So when I send you $1, somebody backs that transaction. That American dollar backs that transaction. So this financial infrastructure created dependency on American system. And therefore, if I want to exclude you from that, so now let's say Russia prepared. Russia got different things. They got their own system in place. Okay. So now, for example, they try to exercise that financial warfare when Russia attacked Ukraine. They excluded them from system, payments, all of that stuff. No Visa card, no nothing. No bank transfer, nothing.
Try to remove Maccas as well.
Yeah. Businesses and all of that. They'll survive the Maccas. But there is a story of that one. That actually McDonald's was built strategically after the collapse of the collapse of Berlin Wall to signalize the dominance of capitalism, by the way. But Russia and China built their own parallel system. So now, for example, between Turkey and Russia, a lot of the settlement of the transactions will be in their local currencies. And same with China and so on. So this is what is threatening the dominance of the dollar. The world economy is dollarized. And this is the problem, because when America decides that they want more dollar for their own benefit, they do something we call quantitative easing. They flood the market. But then, when things don't go well, they do tapering, which is they reverse that. Now, if you are on the receiving end, when dollar floods, it disrupts your economy. A lot of cheap loans, a lot of things. Then they increase interest rates, your loans become more expensive. But then they also start withdrawing. Dollar starts going back. So imagine if you are in the sea and these waves of dollars are flowing. They're coming and going. So they come, they push you, then they go out, your economy starts. So this actually creates the shocks in economy. So one of the things that you build economy, this is the first two strategies that Turkey has done. They build economy, building industrial base, ability to make things. Then building infrastructure, ability to move things. But then to protect it, they needed monetary policies that will reduce that dollarization in the country and increase their own lira currency, lirazation. And this is in order to protect your own currency from depending. And so this is something that is not easy for most of the country. Once you lock them out of the dollars, that's it. They can't trade, they can't buy.
Is it
So
something they're going to try to change the world currency? Like, what's the intention behind like China, Russia, these superpower countries?
China and Russia are trying to increase trading between themselves in their own currency. Russia ask payments in their currency for the oil and other things that they're exporting now, because let's say Europe and other countries, they depend so much on these commodities that they have. So they demand payment in their own currency.
So countries...
Sorry,
Okay.
go ahead.
Now, just countries might start paying in their own currency, and that's how to...
Not countries, few countries might demand, but if I don't see your currency as valuable, like I'm not going to do that, and you need my product. Let's say you need energy to import.
could
I
Russia
don't trust your money.
if, for example, there's a country like Malaysia, okay,
Yeah.
Malaysia and Russia have a deal. Could they just pay in Russia? Could Russia say,
Yeah.
"I'd rather take euros than US"?
They could. I mean that euro is kind of, in that sort of circle with the dollar, all those separate things altogether. But they are not opposing, like, for example, some other currencies. If you are in Malaysia and you are dealing with, you said who?
Russia.
Russia. Okay. So for you, the problem is the currency rate. How, if I take money, or let's say borrow or give money, by the time I need to sell you the product or buy from you, what's that money gonna be worth now? So that volatility, you want money to be as stable as possible.
Yep.
Right? So US dollar is whatever everybody's saying, but that's the kind of like the most stable from all of the others and most trusted. That's why you go to any countries, they will always value that. You go now to any country, they will always, in the black market, in the most devastated area, they will always trust the dollar. Give me dollars. Forget these local currencies.
Especially in Lebanon now, obviously the currency is just completely gone.
Nobody would trade in whatever is the currency
The
now. They deleted a couple of zeros every
Yeah,
day.
wallah.
You know,
Allah A'lam what's going on. A lot of people
Yeah.
are doing black market stuff
Yeah,
to actually
so-
get their subhanAllah. But
yes.
do you have any examples, so like, of where you've seen, how you're talking about the waves, how the way they try to remove the dollars from the system and stuff like that? Because I know, for example, Jordan has a deal with America where the US dollar is locked at, I think, 70 cents. It can't go
most-
lower than 70 cents.
Yeah, so most of these countries that don't have really economy that can withstand these economic situations and pressures and so on, they peg their currency. Like in Bosnia, for example, they deposit certain amount of euros in the bank in Europe, and then they issue currency 1 to 2 to euro. But it's not really currency; it doesn't fluctuate. It's just a euro under different name, white labeling euro.
Okay.
So a lot of these other currencies are like that. So it's meaningless. So the main thing is, main competitor are large country that do a lot of trade, where dependency, like Chinese currency, is the main thing. So America would always accuse China of, artificially manipulating the currency and so on when it suits them. And so that's why, for example, one of the things that Turkey is doing now is increasing strategic reserves in gold in central bank, for example. Because you don't know what to trust anymore.
Yeah.
Which currency is going up, down? How's everybody manipulate these things differently?
You hear from a lot of people, like they say, our only way of saving ourselves, because our money is just getting thrown around and all this kind of stuff, the only way to go is to put all your money in gold, or to I'll speak. I actually ask the next question later. But like, what do you think about that? About people who say put all your money in gold because the volatility isn't as much, and so on and so forth.
What do you think?
Well, I feel like I think I heard that some of these major countries, I mean not the US, but other countries are trying to actually invest in gold. So when if gold becomes the main currency, then they already have so many reserves, and they can push back the dollar, and they can just like forget about the dollar, and gold will be a main currency for some of these countries that can't counter the dollar, because not many countries have something that's stronger than the dollar. Like the dollar is like a staple of currencies, like the euro, but that's for many different countries. That's not just for one country.
Oh, buddy.
Do you know?
That doesn't fall far from the truth.
Do you know which countries are doing this, like investing in gold now?
I'm not sure. I think I heard it was mainly the bigger countries, China, Russia, very, very rich countries, so they can. How do I put it into words?
Like a balance kind of.
Yeah, gold and the dollar, or maybe even make it more valuable so it suits them, because if they buy it when it's lower, of course it goes up like stock, and then they can sell that and gain more money.
Russia did that as in a lead up to the war, they would, as they sell a major, they are major exporter of oil, they would convert a lot of that in gold. Now the challenge with the gold is that Russia found out very quickly is that once you are cut off, and this is the power of infrastructure that US runs, once you are cut off that infrastructure, gold does nothing. Just sits there. You can't do anything with it. So you thought, I'm going to have gold so I can sell it tomorrow to get something. Well, you can't. It's not, you can't send metal digitally. You know? So it actually didn't play that role in Russia economy as they thought. So all of that gold just sitting in Moscow somewhere.
Yeah.
So this is the challenge. So the challenge is not necessarily do you have a goal, do you have this thing. I would say, think about what you as a country can do. Forget the gold, forget the currencies, forget these kind of things. What can you do? Can you make a drone? Can you defend yourself? If your buildings collapse, can you build them up? Can you build homes for 1 million people in a year? So these are the things, what knowledge, what capacity you have. And this is where I think Turkey is example for a lot of countries. You see, I remember as I was reading statistics last year, some of these US professors, they would bring, inflation in Turkey is so bad. And they put, at one point in time, Turkey's inflation worse than Venezuela, Sri Lanka, and Lebanon, right? And I was like, I was reading the news. Actually, that month, like Venezuela, I don't even mention, just look at the charts. Like, that's gone. Like, forget it. No need to mention that. But he was saying that while Sri Lankan president was running away from the country because they were facing starvation. President ran away. There was no food anymore.
They were in his house as well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Swimming in his pool.
Yeah.
And so he was saying, Turkey's economy is so bad. Sri Lanka, how are you calculating? They can't even feed themselves.
Exactly.
We're talking about major top 10 producers of food in the world and so many other things. Same with Lebanon. They were ranking Turkey's economy worse.
Be careful when you talk about Lebanon in front of us.
Lebanon,
Yeah?
I know. So let me give you an example of Lebanon, for example, as I talk to people. You read the news, people celebrate people who robbed the bank in Lebanon. Like they are the national heroes.
Yep.
You know, because he robbed the bank.
Yep.
That captures the sentiment where the country is, if that's the hero. You want to import now, there's no electricity, right? 24 hours electricity is a dream. So you want to bring the generator there to work as a thing. So you put a container generator, you ship it to Lebanon. It doesn't go to the government port to collect the tax and so on. It goes to Hezbollah port. So they get the money from you because government charge you 50,000, Hezbollah only 30. You get discount, right? So they're getting all the tax.
Yeah.
Government get nothing. So if you happen to get that eventually, that generator in the neighborhood, the local warlord controls the electricity. You can't run that generator. So how do you run things there? It's very difficult. There's no governance. There's no, there's so much division. Yeah. This how Turkey was decades ago. There was chaos. Nobody could agree on anything. And so a lot of our countries now, look at now what's happening in Pakistan. They are arresting the Imran Khan.
Yeah, the prime minister.
You lose the government, that's it. You are target of assassinations, plots. There's no judiciary. Who would invest in these countries? So these countries now, reason why Lebanon is now doing this currency, trying to fix the currency, is because they want IMF loans. So the strategy on most of Lebanon, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, all of these countries is very simple. Get us more money from IMF. What are we going to do with the money? We're going to buy stuff from somebody else. Okay, once we finish that something else, food, whatever we bought from that somebody else, and we now have that debt, what's the next idea? Then IMF comes and these economists say, what's the best way? What we're going to do now
More money.
wait, before we give you more money, as a cure for inflation, we're going to increase interest rates. And that's the best. So now, record number of debt, record number of inflation. IMF doesn't want to even give any more money. They're running out of the money because they're saying We know you're also taking money from Chinese, Chinese like version of World Bank from China, and now you're taking our money, giving to them. So there is no more money. There is no you wasted the money. You don't produce anything. You are taking stuff from other countries. So in next 5 to 10 years, that region is facing major catastrophe, collapse, because they are not producing anything. Everything is more expensive. There's no investment. There's no increase in capacity. So what you're seeing now, Sri Lanka starving, can't produce food. What if that starts spreading? Because how long can you live from these loans? So Turkey as example of building your own capacity, fixing your situation is think of it as just a vehicle for the message. That country, that what they do is just a vehicle for the region. Do these kinds of things.
Yeah.
Don't just rely on other people to and so this is where I think the message is very important. It's for those regions to build on their own capacity, to start producing something on their own.
Yeah, and I guess the value that you create in your country, it oftentimes shows, like the value of your country. So if you don't have anything to offer, then why would other people like even bother investing in you, as you were saying? But I do have another couple of questions. I know that I'm conscious of time. I need to make sure, inshallah, I know it's a school night as well. Adam's probably like, I want to go to sleep, leave me alone. But there's two questions that I wanted to ask, and they're unrelated to each. And I know you went to 1998, you were in Turkey, and you recently gone back 24 years later now, I think.
I've been going in and out, but yeah.
I just wanted to ask you, based off of eye test, like going in and out of the country for the past 20 or so years, and you seeing it from where it was when I've heard a lot of stories about how Istanbul used to be full of trash, and like there was just garbage all over the place, and like you were saying, Turkey, Istanbul, all of these major places were in tatters not too long ago, and then coming to what it is now, one of the biggest tourism spots in the world. Obviously, there's brothers around the world that are getting their hair transplants done there as well, and you got all these people doing plastic surgery. So it's become a hub or a little hotspot basically for tourism, and for Allahumma barik, all these other things. I would want to ask how you feel or how you've seen it progress, or has it gone better? Has it gone worse over the number of years?
Absolutely. Istanbul is now a major city, just like Melbourne, beautiful, organized, managed. Those things are a thing of the past, of 90s, and that's the period of era where, as you said, there was trash in the streets, no drinking water, and so on. Now, you go to Istanbul, one of the busiest airports in the world is Istanbul Airport. I was in the area called Başakşehir, for example. They built almost like a city, hospital city, almost the biggest hospital in Europe. Anywhere you look, there are millions of tourists coming. Healthcare, as I have a Bosnian citizenship also, you could go just to any hospital and being taken care of for free, free of. So like everywhere you go, you see the difference in terms of the freedom and Islamic awakening. Also, you see that massive change. In terms of religiosity, there were studies and surveys that shows that massive improvement. So last 20 years, truly, it's been a massive transformation of the country.
Beautiful. This isn't related to that. So alhamdulillah, we've kind of wrapped up the Turkish conversation. But a lot of the theories that I'm hearing around what's going on currently in the economy, not only in Turkey but in the Western civilization, is that they're all trying to move towards a cashless society, make everything digitally, like the digital currency becomes the thing. Obviously we had crypto, we had all that kind of stuff, but we've seen an increase in kind of like us transitioning to a cashless society, one where you have to tap, and then after COVID, don't give me your cash, I don't want to, just if you don't have card, you can't buy what I've got. How do you believe, first of all, that theory's got any truth to it, number one, and number two, What does that mean for society as a whole if we've moved towards a cashless society?
Digital. Tell me about digital payments. What do you think? What are digital payments doing and where they are going?
I think that the thing about these currencies, it's not, I mean, it's literally decentralized currencies. So the fluctuation is, it can ruin an economy in one day. Your whole country, even El Salvador, when they started accepting Bitcoin, that was like 2010. It wasn't even worth like $2,000. I'm not sure how much it was worth, but we saw it shoot up to 60,000. And now it's like, last time I checked, 20,000. So if that's your currency fluctuating that much, then it's worse than interest. Worse than interest rates, because interest rates maybe 6-7%, but like 60,000 to 20,000 is a huge drop.
Good, yeah.
Like, so if you sell a product and what if Bitcoin just drops the next day? Then now what, you can't pay your bills, can't do anything, or like, and like what cryptocurrency to accept? Ethereum, Bitcoin, one of those like small ones, just a random currency. Dogecoin.
What's the one Andrew Tate was talking about? A couple of
I should make a Tate coin. Yeah.
I'm sure somebody already did. Yeah, it's true. I mean, volatility is the main issue in these things. And what I've been saying for a long time is that in terms of these decentralized currencies and so on, there is the fact that they are like a private currency. They have features which allows a lot of control, and the governments love to control things. So the government cryptocurrency, where they can have a direct insight into your wallet and control, is fantastic idea for a lot of governments. So you could just imagine China, for example, where if they had a digital currency and, let's say this podcast is monetized, let's say somebody in China is talking about Uyghur and something, and they can see who is donating to this podcast. And if that was a local, this was in China, a podcast, they just press the button and switch off your accounts, and they know everybody who is donating. So that transparency in the hands of the government makes everybody then not support or be what I told you about that story of a donkey,
Yeah.
That echo is very loud, and you are scared to do anything that is not approved by a government. So you start self-censoring before they censor you. And so I think that cashless society or digital, it's already cashless basically. Nothing wrong with that being cashless. It's just convenience, I love cashless, but I don't want a government to, without any friction, can go into my switching off and on. Although they can do it. Banks ban accounts, they do different things, but that is a small portion, and that is correlated with how authoritarian the society is. So more freedom, better for you. Less freedom, and more control. Digital allow for more interference from the side of the government. And I said that it will perhaps become a time when, regardless of the flaws of current financial system, when the government take control of the currency in digital format, and they can really see and control it to that degree, you'll say, I wish we had a time when we had the normal banks and all of what we have today, because it could be quite different experience.
Because you can see it, like, from what I understand, if all of my money is in my bank account, and like you said, the government has the ability to switch on and off, my capability to pay my rent, to feed my family, to stop me from basic necessities such as food, water, shelter, I'm not going to say anything that's going to get me in trouble. I'm going to be the donkey that's on the other side listening to the other donkey that's getting whipped. I'm going to be like, no, I hear you.
Tell me what to do. I'm jump whatever you say.
Exactly.
So you can see, like, for example, in some countries, they are saying, I don't know how far is that, like, how they talk about social credits and how you behave, and it's almost become George Orwell sort of Big Brother utopian society where you gonna be, how you behaving, are you smiling, are you behaving yourself?
Yeah. Interestingly enough,
you
there's
know?
actually a Netflix series called Black Mirror. Have you watched it?
I think I watched the episode where you get your
You get
points,
credit points and demerit points,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you got like a star rating.
Well, that all depends. You see, to be connected with your financial accounts.
Exactly.
And
Everything
statements.
is kind of
Yeah,
correlated.
yeah.
So if you do something out of the ordinary, or somebody gives you a 1-star rating and your rating drops, you're disallowed from certain social groups and you're not allowed to be in certain places. You might lose your job based off of that because the rating of the workplace goes down.
Imagine some of these countries where there's no freedom, no transparency, no governance.
Yeah, it's game
You are
over.
finished. You are finished.
Game over. You're basically just, as
So
Andrew Tate says, you're in the matrix.
yeah, you are grabbed. I mean, it's a digital reality. Matrix that wouldn't exist in analog necessarily world.
100%. I know that everyone's stretched for time, but I do have one more question. Just one more, and it's probably a complex question, so I do apologize for taking on 20 minutes. But just based off of what we're seeing currently, this is based on Australia and what we're currently going through here. Do you believe that we're heading towards a recession?
I think it depends how we handle this inflation and interest rates. It is very clear, if you look at collapse of some of the banks, that this was a result of a very high or fast increase in interest rates. This is slowing down economy. So when economy is slowing down, money is becoming more expensive. The businesses are not producing as much, they are not employing, your unemployment starts going up. And as all of this happens, more and more of people's money go into paying for the loans that would otherwise go into the food and other commodities, other things, right? So as you lose the jobs, money become more expensive, economy starts slowing down. We are entering into the phase of recession. Now, on one hand, our central bank is trying to be confident that they are fighting inflation by increasing interest rates.
Yep.
But now we know that was actually the wrong strategy. Report I cite Nobel Prize economist in documentary and from the Australian Parliamentary Committee itself said that in monetary policy, increasing interest rate will hurt Australians. It's not going to fix inflation that is caused by supply side of economics. So that means that if they continue to increase interest rates, it will hurt more and more people.
Yeah.
There will have to be a time when the pain is at a level where they say enough. People are breaking down.
Yeah.
There is unemployment at certain level. We need to stop. So I think there might be a little bit more pain coming as they seem to be very sort of boldly going in this direction. But I think eventually they will become a pain. So if you are thinking what's coming, think about what will increased interest rates mean for you, for your business, for the economy, for the prices, for the jobs. Because you might be working in a company that might have to lay off some staff.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the money, and you are maybe, I don't know, accountant, or you are maybe web developer, IT technician in a firm that's suddenly running out of the money. They need to let go half of their staff.
Exactly.
So need to think about these kind of things.
Yeah, and I've kind of like seen, or from what I understand, subhanAllah, a lot of people, because of the mortgage cliff that's coming, a lot of people are not going to be able to pay for their properties, and they're going to go looking for rental properties that don't exist because there's a 0.8% vacancy rate.
You have seen now a couple of major companies collapsing, development company that are into real estate because of these problems. the problem stemmed from increase price of things, building material, for example, energy, fuel, and so on. So a lot of contractors took the money to build the homes, but now price going up 30%. They can't deliver those homes, so now they file for bankruptcy.
Like Porter Davis,
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about thousands of people being affected by that.
Yeah, 100%.
SubhanAllah.
So, well, long story short, do you believe we are?
I think that it's not necessarily that it will go to any particular direction.
Yeah.
It will be determined by the choices. It will be depending on which path you take. But I'm worried with these banks that are failing. When you see Credit Suisse folding, we are talking about like a national bank of Australia. The Swiss is a country of banks. It doesn't have military, never been in a war because of the security we place in banks there as a world, Nazis kept the money there until the history, I don't know who
Drug
didn't,
dealers and
whatever.
mafia, everyone has their money there.
Everybody has got their money there, right? And so if the Credit Suisse can collapse and, big name, big banks like Silicon Valley banks and so on, it's an interesting time. It's an interesting time. This crisis is a little bit different. Previous crisis was because you ran out of money. There was no liquidity. You ran out of your money in a way that you didn't run out of your money in this particular moment. Now it was panic. You didn't have in that moment money. It's and when people start panicking and withdrawing money, this could happen overnight. That people start panicking again, and bang, bang, bang. You've seen in a matter of days, a couple of banks fall down. America reacted in a very heavy approach, very strong approach. But I feel that we reached the point where reaction was such a major reaction, where they guaranteed deposits, that now it put us to the edge of the cliff. Because how many deposits can you guarantee? So usually you guarantee $250,000. Now America is saying, we're going to guarantee. That now put incentives where you are now at the edge of the cliff. If this starts happening again, you can't guarantee anything anymore. What will happen? So how much these bankers going to push for interest rates, we don't know. We don't know. And this is what I appreciate with President Erdogan. He recognized this is not the right way. The whole world went one way. He said, no, we're going to go opposite way.
Yep.
And we're going to support our businesses. We're going to create the jobs. We're going to make sure that our factories work, that they are not crippled by the more expensive money. And he went the opposite way. He could have done what everybody was saying. Yeah. He went, and that takes guts. That's where we need leaders who are committed to do what's necessary, what's right, what's hard. You don't have many leaders in the world who could have stand against the whole world and say, you don't know economy, don't you know this? And the book says this. And he says, no, don't worry about it. And then he said, this is the best for our country. 100%. You don't understand the realities on the ground. So this is what you have to appreciate,
Okay, it's a great way to wrap up the podcast, inshallah. One thing we'll do is we'll definitely leave the links to the documentary down below, and Brother Almir's social media accounts and his YouTube. Make sure you go there, you support. Anything you wanted to add just to finish up the podcast, inshallah?
Just enjoy the documentary. We took time to make it interesting, and share it with your friends.
It's a great watch, honestly.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
And this is me from a economic standpoint, and
just a fan.
Work in the industry.
I'm just a fan.
So it's very.
It's all independently made, by the way. We finance it. We had a little bit of GoFundMe, and a few friends chipped in. Actually, most of it shot on my iPhone.
I love that.
Yeah. Just we got few microphones and stand lights and went around just like friends, and we had a good time.
Yeah.
Just we did all, and then few friends help us edit and put some graphics and
Love it.
those little, just
And-
spice it up. And my
Obviously,
son
Adam as well.
also he is head of our production team.
MashaAllah. Allah
Inshallah.
May Allah reward you, brother Almir. Thank you very much for coming on. And obviously, brother Adam as well. Thank you for sharing your 2 cents as well. I loved it. Wallahi, I wasn't expecting you to say anything this whole podcast. And when he did, I was like, the apple does not fall far from the tree. Allahumma barik. So Jazakallah khair for joining us. Don't forget, like, comment, subscribe. And yeah, we'll see you next episode, inshallah.